and I saw you racing. I think it looked like you were having a great effort. So Dan asked me to come and talk today about just a little bit of how the history of the PDX XC cross-country series started, and but I'll give you a little bit of my background. I started running when I was your age. Ran for a club called Portland Track Club, and it was back in the 70s, and we had a lot of great runners to really watch and be inspired by. I saw Steve Prefontaine run when I was a kid, and it was really, really cool. And then just a whole history. You're really lucky to live in Oregon if you love running, because there's such a great history here to really draw upon. So I ran through middle school. I went to a school called Jackson High School. I ran at University of Arizona. I was a 1,500 meter runner, steeplechaser, and the steeplechase was kind of the beginning of the end for me. I was not a great hurdler, and so I kind of got a little bit hurt doing that. I graduated from University of Southern California, and I worked for Nike for about 30 years. And I just retired back in February after a 30-year career at Nike. But during that whole time when I was at Nike, I have 4 kids. So my oldest is 25, 23-year-old girl, 21-year-old girl, and 18-year-old boy. And all of them were runners. So when my 25-year-old was in 3rd grade at Holy Trinity School, he volunteered me to coach he heard that CYO had a track program. So I was like, well, I will, I'll see what it takes. And so I ended up, that was probably 17, 18 years ago, and I started coaching at the middle school level, starting really kind of growing the CYO program. How many of you have done CYO Track? Okay, so back then there was only 600 kids. We had 1 meet a weekend. It was very unorganized. And so I went in and started taking a lot of and this is what you can take, think about all the things that you learn in school, but if you can take things that you learn and apply it in different areas, that's what I did with CYO. I basically started making things a little more efficient, a little better time spent, a little more organized. And so the program grew from like 600 kids to currently it's at 2,000. And it's one of the biggest middle school programs in the country. And so I did that for about 15 years, coaching at Holy Trinity. Then I coached cross country in high school, coached at Central Catholic, and in cross country. We won 3 state titles in 4 years. Then I went over to St. Mary's and just coached there for about 4 years. And now I'm the head track coach at Central Catholic, and I've been there 3 years, and in my 3rd year my girls team won the state track title for the first time in Central Catholic's history. So the formula works in a lot of things. It's kind of taking things that I've learned over the years and applying it into different teams and organizations. And that was one of the things that Coach Tom Rothenberger from Jesuit and I were sitting there observing how fun the CYO Meet of Champions was. It was just such a great event where people, were cheering for each other. You had some great competition, but it was really well organized. It's just it's one of the most special events that we have, in the middle school area with that Meet of Champions. And so Coach Rothenberger and I looked at each other and it's like, man, if we could figure out a way to do this in cross country, that would be really, really cool. So at the time, Nike had continued to do really great things from a high school cross country standpoint. They started Nike Team Nationals. They started Border Clash. I think we've had about 15 Border Clashes now. So basically, it's a really cool atmosphere, there's music, there's live video feeds, there's all sorts of stuff that make it really, really fun and interesting, as opposed to just, you know, going out and running. I mean, going out and running is really cool, but there's a lot of things that could be, you know, jazz it up a little bit. And so Coach Rothenberger and I, you know, we said, hey, there's not a lot of stuff for middle school kids to be able to have, you know, that experience. And so, and it's like, how do we get some of these other kids in middle school out and learn how fun cross country can be? So we kind of put together a plan, and we said, hey, you know what, we don't want to compete with classic soccer or volleyball or all those, or football, all those things that are happening on Saturdays in the fall. So we made a decision that we would have the PDX XC Cross Country Series happen on Sunday afternoons. Kind of went, you know, so we want to make sure people go to church or mass in the morning, but then have a 2-hour window in the afternoon on a Sunday to basically put on a really simple race. So we decided 3Ks long enough, but it's also short enough for people that are in pretty decent shape. They can get out there and do it. So the first year, we had our first race at Jesuit, and then we had one at Laurelhurst Park, and then, you know, I think Fern Hill. And there was a middle school state championship that was being conducted. You know, it was kind of put on by different schools around the state. And what we observed was the PDX, so at the PDX XC Series, we brought in, you know, foot traffic brought their van in, we had them crank up the music. The other thing that was really special for us to do was we wanted to make sure it was accessible to anybody. You didn't have to really register, you didn't have to pay anything, all you had to do is show up. So I was able to get money from an organization that supports youth running in the Willamette Valley. So I got a grant so I could pay for, you know, make the PDX XC Series a free event for kids. So there's no reason you can't do it. So we put the PDX XC Series on that first year, and then we watched the state meet, and I was like, wow, they're really making a lot of effort. So I kind of took it and asked them, hey, next year we will take over the state meet, and we'll kind of make it a part of the whole series. So in the first year that we did the middle school state meet, I think there were probably 350 kids that competed. Last year we had 1,000 kids register and compete in 4 different races. So we have the way we looked at it was we wanted to make sure there was a race for people that were just participating, that weren't super competitive, but we wanted to encourage everybody to come out and participate. So that was the race we call the champs. So we have the boys champs race, a girls champs race, and then the super champs is the more competitive race. And the other thing that we were able to do is, with the help of Willamette Valley Track and Field, we were able to get plaques and medals for the top 50 for the Super Champs race. So it was, and then because we had the connection with Nike, and also Jerry Schumacher's kids, you know, running the PDX XC, I would just call Jerry, and we had some really great, we had Olympic athletes out there as honorary starters. So it was so for the last probably 6 years, we've put this series on, and each year we evaluate what we can do to help support it. We're not trying to kind of take it over, but what I like to look at it is, you know, PDX XC was like an incubator, a little bit of a fire starter to get things going in other areas. So the last 2 years, the University of Oregon has asked me to put on a middle school race at the Bill Dellinger Invitational. So I said, yeah, we can do that. So we used that same formula, made it really fun, and so the last 2 years, we've had the PDX XC Series at the Bill Dellinger Invitational. Nike Pre-Nationals has a middle school race. That's part of the series that we help support. So this year we're going to help them. There will be chip timing. We're going to help pay for that as part of the PDX XC Series. So our races this year will be the second and last Sunday of October. But the good news is there's a lot more opportunities, for middle school cross country all around the state. And I think that that was really the idea, is to try to how do you create events or connect with other different groups in different parts of the state to really grow and make it exciting. Another thing that incubated out of the PDX XC Series was I came up with a concept called the Run Tracktown Youth Series. So basically that idea, and Youth Runner was deeply involved in that, but the original idea came as a result of the same thinking that we applied to PDXC. We said, hey, keep it simple, keep it really tight as far as the number of events. So we did 5 events, 100, 400, 15, long jump and turbo jav. So anybody could do one of those events. You could throw, jump, run long, run fast. And then they went around the state and had little mini meets in different parts of the state. And we used the same communication we had with the PDXC coaches. It's like, hey, here's a summer track series that's going to come to your town, and for the kids that do well in it, they get an invitation to go watch the World Junior Championships, and then also compete in a meet at that championship meet. So just to kind of keep that in mind as you go through middle school, high school, college, and what in life. I mean, there's always different ways of kind of applying the things you've learned, but also there's no idea that's that. So if you can see some of these things have all evolved to different areas, and they've created all sorts of new different opportunities. So that's so a little bit of the history of the PDXC series, the Run Tracktown, and I mean I think it's so great that you have this exposure and also the opportunity to compete at the middle school level with these events that are around. So I'll leave it at that. Do you guys have any questions about that? And then I'll talk.
Yeah,
about
Ben and Patrick ran in the Run Tracktown.
Yeah, how was it? A great experience? Did you go down to Hayward Field? Yeah, you got to run at the Carnegie Hall of Track and Field.
Awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah, he won the 1500 at Grant
Okay,
Park, so yeah, he did pretty good.
I was the one with the hand timer. That was when I came in. So, any other questions or? Come on, don't be shy. Yeah.
So, I know that Jesuit and Central Catholic have a rivalry in all sports generally. Are you friends with Coach Roethlisberger, but also rivals?
Yeah. No, I think. So that's a great question. I think what this does, so you're at this camp together. You're all going to probably go to different schools. You're going to probably all go to different high schools. But I think the one thing that's really cool is I think the friendships that are gained as part of just being part of a running community, that surpasses anything that kind of gets in the way of the things you were saying. So Coach Roethlisberger and I, we ran against each other in high school. So we knew each other in high school. And there's a lot of high school coaches right now that we grew up competing, against each other, but also we trained together. It's not like, it's like, hey, you go to Jackson and Lincoln and Jesuit and you can't train together. But in the summer, that's your social outlet. You want your friends, if you want to go out and run with your buddy, or one of your friends, it's a great thing to go do. And then those are those bonds that are secured at a very early age. So Coach Roth and I are good friends. We talk to each other all the time. Our goal is to focus on what's best for the kids in the sport. And so, but at the end of the day, when the competition is heating up, like anything, you're trying to do your best, and he's very, they've got a great program, they've got amazing facilities. I don't know if you've seen Central Catholic's track, but we don't have a track. Our track is next to a dog park at Fernhill Park. So, but there's just different ways of looking at how we approach it. So, yeah, it's a good question. Any other? So you guys are gonna all know each other as you go into high school, and you'll be friends, and you'll have those connecting points, throughout. Well, hopefully you'll be friends.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
What did you do for Nike?
So I was in product development for about 25 years. So I worked in footwear, and I worked in almost every category except for running. And you know why? Because I did so much outside of work at Nike on running that it would have been too much. I didn't want to be 24/7 running. I wanted to. I'm a active learner. I love learning new things, and so I was cross training, tennis, and then my last couple of years I was the director of global footwear sustainability. So my job was to try to help our designers make better product and better decisions with less impact to the earth. So that's what I did. And then the other thing outside of, I mentioned it to Mia, but in the last 7 years, I've led the rebuilding of 2 track facilities. So one, it was at Holy Trinity School. I basically raised all the money and designed and developed that track at Holy Trinity. And then in the last couple years, I led the effort in rebuilding the track and the field at Roosevelt High School, which is in North Portland. And there's actually a small documentary that was done on that project. It's called More Than Just an Oval. And so you can look it up on YouTube. But
Yeah.
but it talks about how creating a track and a place to run was way bigger than the sport. It was impactful to the school, the community, to these kids that maybe didn't have the opportunity to do something that could change their lives. So, any other questions on PDXC, track facilities?
Will they get handouts for that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So since volunteering has been a big part of your life, what can a middle school kid do to volunteer? And I mean, how do you think about it being a benefit instead of just taking up your time?
Yeah, no, I think it's. So I think in middle school, I think there's all sorts of opportunities out there to help. Middle school it's probably a little harder to volunteer your time to do things, but as you go into high school, I always look at it as it's always a great opportunity to give back. And so if you look at what your experience was as a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grader, look back and say what would have been really cool for me to have as a inspiration or a resource, or what can I do to help someone as they're coming up and learning how to run, how to compete. So always go back and see what could that impact, what could you do to make an impact on someone that is a couple years younger than you that you wish you would have had. And that's a lot of how I've kind of approached a different, I've started I started coaching. I loved running. I loved working with kids. I loved creating workout spaces. I love creating opportunities. But also, just at each stage, there's always something that you can give back, and regardless of how old you are. And I think that's it's a great thing to do. But it's also, it makes you feel really good about the work you're doing. You'll see that the reward in itself is someone coming back to you a couple years later and saying, "Gosh, that was really impactful. You helped me learn how to breathe, when I was running up that hill," or "You helped me carry my arm. You told me how to carry my arms a little bit better because, when you were in third grade, you were doing this, but then you had someone a little bit older telling you, hey, if you keep them down here, this is how you're going to get up that hill a little faster." So even passing on that knowledge and that experience, regardless of how old you are now, think about what could have benefited you when you were younger. So.
And then next year at this time, some of these guys will be thinking about, high school is going to be right around the corner.
Yeah.
So what can they expect that's going to be different, or, what would they do to transition into being a high school freshman?
Yeah, no, so I've coached high school cross country for 7 years, 3 years at Central, 4 years at St. Mary's, and then started the PDX. But I'd say the biggest advice I'd give to you is someone that's going into high school, regardless of what high school you're going into, is especially cross country, the work gets done in the summer. So basically, if you know what high school you're going into, make sure you're connected with the team captain, the high school coach, and just start it's really cool because you go on these summer runs, and summer runs are really fun going into high school because you get to know the kids that are going to be on the team, you get to know the coaches. So the cool thing about transitioning into high school as being a runner is all of a sudden you'll have these instant friends and colleagues that so going into the high school won't seem as scary to you. It's a big transition from middle school to high school. The same thing from high school to college. It's like if you can find those areas to connect, whether it's your cross country team, the coach, I think, and then you're part of that group that has kind of that common thread, which I think is really important. The other thing that I always, emphasize with my high school athletes is, you have to make sure you have to be really organized to do sports in high school. So make sure you're organized, you're focusing in on your schoolwork, your grades. Make sure you're communicating. If you're staying up late doing a paper or you're feeling sick, it's really, really important to communicate to your coach, to your teacher, to your parents, because what happens is, if you start digging a hole and you start getting behind in your homework, then you're staying up too late, and then you want to get that workout in. You just have to be really organized, but also be really honest with yourself. And I'd say that, you're going to school to go to school. The running part helps bring that energy in, the endorphins, but school's got to be the priority. But it also, being a runner, also I think gives you that self-discipline that makes sure that you can get everything else organized in your life. So those are, I'd say the transition is make sure you connect with your team, make sure you focus in on your homework and your schoolwork, be organized, and it also takes some sacrifices. There's a lot of other things that go on in high school, the football games, all the dances, all these things, which are all great, but you need to make sure that you're prioritizing and setting aside the time so you can get rested. because once you kind of dig the hole, as far as, and I'd say this especially with young ladies, make sure, you know, as you're going into high school, and if you're running and you're staying up late, get your iron tested. So it's really, so a lot of girls, when they start doing a lot more work, they're becoming more mature, they're running harder, they're doing harder workouts. There's a thing called iron deficiency that makes you really, really tired, and once you go below a certain level, it's really hard to get back up. So I would even, you know, if you start feeling a little bit tired, talk to your coach, talk to your parents. It's a real simple test. So you can get your ferritin, it's called ferritin, you can get your ferritin tested. But I think that's something, because a lot of times you're you're doing way too many things, and your body can only take so much. And so the iron, if you go into, so I'd say that's another thing to just really, really look for in anticipating going into high school, especially the young ladies. I'd say also, you know, high school athletics. You know, obviously, academics should be your top priority. I've had three of my kids ran Division I track or cross country. I've got a daughter who currently runs for Gonzaga. My other daughter was a sprinter at Seattle U, and my older son ran at Carroll College, a small NAIA school. My youngest was one of the top soccer players in the state, and he chose not to do athletics in college because he wanted to focus on academics. And but I would say one of the things that I think is really good to know is there's a lot, if you plan to go to college, there's a lot more money out there for college based on your academics. There's very, very little money because I think there's this myth of, I'm going to get a full ride scholarship in cross country and track. There's not a lot of money. There's actually the opportunity to run at a school because you did track. It might get you in connecting to that school because you really are a great runner, but then your academics are the part that carries you. So use it. That's that. You know, how do I plug in if I want to go to Harvard? You know, I make sure my grades are good, and I'm running at this level. But that gives me an opportunity to go out and connect with that coach and say, look, I've ran, you know, 2:15 for an 800. I'm really interested in going to Harvard. You know, I like your program. You know, what do you think? You know, do you think my grades, my test scores will allow me to get in? So those are the things that you can think about. You know, make sure you're focusing on your grades. But then the running part is like an extracurricular. Yes?
Do you have a memory from your high school career that stands out to you, or certain part of that has really changed the way you?
Yeah. In my high school career, you know, I had, you know, I'd say, that's a really good question. In my high school, I was a really, really good middle school runner. And my freshman, sophomore year, it's like when I was in 8th grade, I ran a 4:39 mile, which is about 4:17 or 4:18 for 1,500. So when I was in 8th grade. And then I ran, so I was really fast going, you know, and then I got injured my junior year. So I ran like a 4:20 mile my sophomore year. And part of it was in my junior year I got hurt. And I think coming back from that, I think it's not about, you know, there's going to be kids that come into high school fast, and there's gonna be people that become fast in high school. And I think the key thing is when you got to focus on yourself. And I think what I learned in high school was I didn't want to spend a lot of time worrying about, you know, oh my gosh, you know, why, you know, I should be doing this. this person thinks of me this way. It's like putting that pressure on yourself. Get rid of that. Focus on yourself. Focus on what you can do to be your best, and know that you're running, you're running for yourself, you're running to stay fit, you're doing your absolute best, and you're doing all those things to kind of tie it in. So after my junior year, when I got hurt, I had a great senior year. I basically put all that stuff aside, put in some great miles over the winter, had a lot of fun. I realized I loved running, and so I kind of changed my attitude. My senior year, and I was like 6th in the state meet. I ran like 3:56 for the 1500. And when I was a senior, I was 6th. That would have won the state meet a lot of these late years. But Jeff Hess ran. We had a very fast class. He ran 3:50 in the race. And then I would say that kind of triggered my interest to continue on. So I went to University of Arizona, and I roomed with Jeff Hess and Dirk Lakeman. We went to South Eugene, and to this day we're still really good friends. And I'd say, but at the same time, realizing when, there's some people that have amazing talent, and there's other people that have to really work hard to get even close to that. So just be happy with what you have, but then also just do the best you can in plugging in where you can. So that's what I kind of learned in my senior year in high school, to just kind of love the sport, just go out there and have fun, and don't put the pressure on yourself, because you run a lot faster when you're relaxed. When you're tense and your arms are tight and your neck is tight, I always tell my athletes, smile when you run. It's like just go out there and smile. So in one of the pretty neat story that I've told people just about. So just to kind of finish up, this year at Central Catholic, so 3 years ago when I took over the program, there was only one girl that qualified for the state meet, and we had 0 points. Okay, and that was, so she barely made it, and we had a very fractured team. They just didn't have a lot of people there. Then basically the goal was to kind of bring people in and make sure they're giving them all the foundational work and helping them figure out what they can do to be their best, and create these situations along the way that kind of created that opportunity. Second year, we had 5 girls qualify for the state meet, and we were 15th. We scored a little bit. This year, my third year, we had, the team started to buy into just, hey, we're going to work hard. We're going to do all the work every day. We're going to get our sleep, get our rest, do the work, and we trust the coaches are going to